What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Sacred Cards. Today I'm coming at you with an update to my Dinomorphia deck profile for February 2024. I really wanted to share an update with this list because I've been doing a ton of work trying to perfect this deck and boatloads of testing against the meta and all different types of matchups. This deck has been a lot of fun to play, and I've got the ratios down to be rather consistent and balanced. As most of you know, I love dinosaur type monsters. Its playstyle will get you down to an incredibly low life points, and the less I have, the more confident and set up you will be. It's a perfect risk and reward strategy. Also, be sure to give the video a like if you did, and subscribe for more content. So with all that said, I'll go through my deck list and try and explain the cards as best I can. Let's get right on into it. Starting off the monsters is 3 copies of Dinomorphia Therizia. If this card is normal or special summon, you can set any Dinomorphia trap directly from the deck, and then if your life points are 2,000 or less, it gains 500 attack. It also floats if it's destroyed. You can banish a trap from your graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia from your graveyard. Next up is 3 copies of Dinomorphia Diplos. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send any Dinomorphia card from the deck to the graveyard. Then if your life points are 2,000 or less, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. If this card is destroyed, you can banish any trap from your graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia from the deck. One of my favorite cards in the deck is 3 copies of Wannabe. This is a great tech card for the deck because during the end phase, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, excavate cards from the top of your deck up to the number of your opponent's unused spell or trap zones. Then you can set 1 excavated trap to your field and place the rest on the bottom of the deck. It always ensures you have the cards you need. It's like Prosperity or Duality for this deck, but better in my opinion. And last of the monsters I play is 3 copies of Ash Blossom. This is just a great generic hand trap, and since I'm only playing 1, I think it's the best choice, and it is good balanced amongst our many other interruptions. Well, that rounds out a very small monster lineup. Now on to the spells. We only play 1 spell in this build, being triple copies of Pot of Duality. Now, I just want to preface this by saying I like this over Prosperity because, especially in a grind game, you need your entire extra deck to be able to keep going, and between this card and Wannabe, it's plenty of excavating power for the deck. It's really nice to play a deck that utilizes this card because it lets you excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and add 1 to your hand, helping you dig for the cards you need. You can special summon during the turn you activate it, but it doesn't really matter because you can set up with your normal summon and let you play during your opponent's turn with all of your traps. Well, that's it for the spells. Now, speaking of the traps, which are a majority of the deck, starting things off, 3 copies of Dinomorphia Frenzy. It's one of my favorite traps in the deck because during your opponent's main phase, pay half your life points, fusion summon a Dinomorphia monster using 1 monster from your deck and 1 monster from your extra deck as fusion material. This card also has the effect when your opponent activates a card or effect while your life points are 2,000 or less. You can banish this card from your graveyard. You take no effect damage from your opponent this turn. The other fusion trap is 3 copies of Dinomorphia Domain. Try not to burn me in the comments as I've been trying to get my hands on the secret rares of this card from my OTS for quite some time. Nonetheless, during the main phase, pay half your life points to fusion summon a Dinomorphia monster using material from your hand, deck, or field. It also has the effect of Frenzy. When your opponent activates a card or effect while your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card and you take no effect damage from your opponent this turn. Now for the counter traps. 3 copies of Dinomorphia Intact. When a monster effect is activated while you control a Dinomorphia card, pay half your life points, negate that effect, and destroy that monster. Also, whenever you take battle damage this turn, it becomes half of whatever your life points are at the time. Plus, during damage calculation, if you would take battle damage, you can banish this card from your graveyard. You take no damage from that battle. So just to clarify, all the counter traps protect you against battle damage, and the normal traps protect you against effect damage. Next is 2 copies of Dinomorphia Sonic. Similar to Intact, except when your opponent activates a spell or trap card while you control a Dinomorphia monster, pay half your life points, negate the activation, and destroy that card. Then destroy a monster you control, which is fine because all of our monsters float and we have searchable recovery when needed. Also, during damage calculation, while your life points are 2,000 less, if you would take battle damage, you can banish this card and you take no damage from that battle. Great targets to send off your copy of Diplos, which is another reason I like 2 copies. Next, for more normal traps, 2 copies of Dinomorphia Alert. This card is great for the grind game. Alert can allow you to pay half your life points, special summon up to 2 Dinomorphia cards in the graveyard whose levels equal 8 or less. Like the other normal traps, when your opponent activates a card or effect while your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card to prevent effect damage for that turn. Now for more counter traps, I play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. This is a great card for the deck because once again you can pay half your life points to negate the summon or activation of a spell, trap card, and destroy it. Now another one I like to play is 3 copies of Gravedigger's Trap Hole. This is one of those cards I'm back and forth between this and Solemn Strike. The problem with Strike is when you have less than 1,500 life points, which you can get down to in 1 turn, it's a completely dead card unless you manage to set up with Stealth Bergia. This one is all up to interpretation and what you want to play, but I've really enjoyed playing Gravediggers because when your opponent activates any card in the hand, graveyard, or banish pile, you can negate it and burn them for 2,000 life points. It's also not once per turn and hits pretty much every deck in the entire game. Now, hands down, one of my favorite tech cards in the deck is 3 copies of Ferret Flames. This deck makes great use of this card because if the combined attack of all monsters your opponent controls is higher than your life points, make your opponent shuffle their monsters back into the deck so that the combined attack is less than or equal to your life points. It's also not once per turn. Any card that makes your opponent do anything is inherently good in my opinion. Next is 3 copies of Soul of the Supreme King. This is another great tech for the deck because you can pay half your life points to special summon Supreme King Zark from your extra deck. Its effects are negated and it is returned to the extra deck at the end of the next turn, allowing you to use it again. The best ability of this card is when your opponent activates a spell card or effect. You can banish this card and Supreme King Zark to special summon 1 Pendulum Dragon, 1 Xyz Dragon, 1 Synchro Dragon, and 1 Fusion Dragon monsters from your hand, deck, or extra deck, or graveyard. This gives you several new monsters on the board and is one of my favorite engines to play in this deck. I'll show you the cards it gives access to in the extra deck. Now, speaking of the extra deck, starting things off with 3 copies of Dinomorphia Rex Term. While this card is on the field, your opponent cannot activate monster effects of monsters with attack greater than or equal to your life points, plus quick effect, pay half your life points. The attack of all monsters your opponent controls become equal to your life points, and if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a level 6 or lower Dinomorphia monster from your graveyard. Now, speaking of level 6, we have 3 copies of Dinomorphia Kentragina. This 4,000 attack monster does lose attack equal to your life points, but it has the amazing ability to quick effect banish a Dinomorphia normal trap, and that card's effect becomes this card's effect. So technically you can use your copy of Frenzy to fusion summon this card, then copy Frenzy's effect again to get a copy of Rex Term as well. Plus, if this card is destroyed, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia from your graveyard. Now, last of the engine cards is 2 copies of Dinomorphia Stealth Bergia. I love the artwork on this card, and it has the effect when your life points are 2,000 or less, you don't have to pay life points to activate trap cards or your monster's effects. It also has a quick effect. When your opponent activates a monster effect, you can inflict damage equal to that monster's original attack. It also has the effect of when it is destroyed, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia from the graveyard. Next is 2 copies of Supreme King Zark. You make Zark with your copies of Soul of the Supreme King, so its effects will be negated, but it provides a huge 4,000 attack and defense and will return to the extra deck after it is summoned. Although if it does get destroyed and you place it in the Pendulum Zone, then Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz monsters your opponent controls can't activate their effects. Plus, if your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, you can destroy that card. I was playing 1 copy, but 2 has come up far too often, especially when you draw into multiple copies of Soul of the Supreme King. Following that up is 1 copy of Odd Eyes Archray Dragon. This is a new card from Age of Overlord. This card's name is always treated as Supreme King Zark. This face down card in the extra deck must either be special summoned or fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing 1 level 12 Dark Supreme King Zark, giving you a permanent 4,000 attack and defense body on the field. Now, the next 4 cards are my targets for Soul of the Supreme King. Simply by banishing the trap card and your copy of Zark, you get access to all the following cards at once, starting with 1 copy of Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon. The main effect with this card is when this card attacks an opponent's monster and that card is not destroyed, you can banish that monster. You can also get access to 1 copy of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. I've considered picking up a copy of Crystal Clear Wing to use instead, but nonetheless, this card has the ability that when another monster's effect is activated, quick effect, negate the activation, destroy that card. If you do, this card gains attack equal to the destroyed monster's original attack till the end of the turn. Plus, if this card battles a level 5 or higher monster, during damage calculation, this card gains attack equal to the current attack of the monster it's battling. Next is one of my favorite packages in the extra deck. 1 copy of Odd Eyes Rebellion Xyz Dragon and 1 copy of Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord. These 2 Xyz monsters are part of the reason I love this engine so much. Odd Eyes Rebellion Xyz Dragon isn't much other than a 3,000 attack body on its own. When summoned out this way, it has no materials, although if it does get destroyed, you can place it in your Pendulum Zone, which gives the effect that you can special summon it back and attach a dark monster from your graveyard as material. Then you can detach a material to target up to 2 monsters your opponent controls with 3,000 or less attack, destroy them. But with Overlord, you can make this card by stacking on top of a Rebellion Xyz Dragon. And since it was made by using a rank 7 as material, it now has the ability to make up to 3 attacks each battle phase. Not just on monsters either, this guy can attack your opponent's life points 3 times each battle phase. All 4 of these cards are very free and give the deck a lot more value and utility, which is why I enjoy playing the Supreme King package in this deck. Well, that is it for the deck profile. I really hope you all enjoyed it. If there's anything you like or don't like, feel free to leave me a comment telling me what you think. Be sure to like the video if you did and subscribe for more content. Thank you all for your support and always enjoy the Sacred Cards. See you all in the next one.